Hello, and thanks everybody for listening. I am really happy to be back. I've been out of existence for a while, taking a little break away from this thing here that they call YouTube and video commentary, and I've really been enjoying my vacay, or should I say staycay. But I thought this topic was interesting, and I'm going to bring it out because I don't think people talk about it at all because they don't consider it to be quote unquote an issue or the big issue or the big hot button topic, but it should be because it's just as important as when people talk about people's personal preferences like sexuality, whether they're straight, whether they're gay, whether they're single, or if they're whatever their category is that they classify themselves, if they're fluid or if they're a person. And fluid is someone who they may not want to call themselves gay, um, or a lesbian, or bisexual or gay. They may say that they're fluid, meaning that there isn't any um, one specific um, sex that they or gender that they would be interested in. It could change over the years from time to time, and they could be a fluid individual, understanding someone who one moment, maybe many years, they date males, and then years later they decide to date females. So they may call themselves gender fluid. Um, and it could go vice versa for different people. So I don't know if some people are aware of that term. I feel like people who are from an older generation are not really in tune with these different, how would you say it, categories that people have pretty much um, coined themselves into. And maybe it is not necessarily a label, maybe it is like more, I'll say, a free label. There is a label or a name for it, but it's more freer, and they don't box themselves into just one gender or box themselves into just one ideology that has been taught back in the days. Oh, okay, males and females get together, and they get married and they have children and they create and reproduce, whatever. It could be a lot different for different people, different walks of life, different backgrounds. Maybe they have a new perspective on things, or maybe it always was like that, but we just, not many people have heard about it. But I know you're looking at these sayings up here. It's totally off um, uh, uh, what I'm talking about, but it is part of it. Nobody talks about the swingers. What about people who are swingers? They are out there, they exist. And there are some people that claim that they're very conscious about their health and that they're safe. But however, you will find people who aren't safe and who pretty much live their lives vicariously, going on as if nothing can happen to them. And if they read something in the paper or they see statistics, it doesn't hit home until it actually happens in their neighborhood, in their backyard, so to speak. If it happens to them personally, or if they know someone personally that it happens to. And a lot of people have this attitude that if it doesn't happen to me, then it won't affect me. And so there are a lot of people who are into infidelity, open marriages, being a swinger, and I don't see the backlash on these individuals. And now, last that I know of, swingers can swap mates. They can also be gender fluid, or they could be people whom they could have a wife, they could have children, and they could then go to another woman's, another man's wife, or they could go to that other man. They could switch genders. They could just, maybe go to these, they schedule these parties that it might be private, and they might meet as a group, and they just have sex with one another, and it's open in that private um, group. And only people who are into this, they go to a meeting place and they all join in, and it's sort of labeled as a swingers party. Now, I don't know if some people are aware of this, but this is going on, and it is becoming the in thing for the newer generation. There are younger people who are now even putting videos in pornography listings, where you can, just like if you, as if say like if you want to go to a club or you want to go to a party, and a dance party, well, they have flyers for these singles groups or these singles parties, and you don't have to be a single person, but you can be a swinger. And then what would happen is, and if you're a single person, or if you're not single person, you're married, or you're a couple and you're swingers, anybody's welcome, that if you're into that kind of lifestyle. And so this is also a lifestyle. A lot of times people will bash people, two women who want to be in a committed relationship with one another, or two males who want to be in a committed relationship with one another, or a black and white or interracial couples who want to be with one another. But what about these swingers who put their lives out there, and they're not using prophylactics, they're not safe, they just go to these parties, and when you get a couple of drinks in you, a lot of times people let their guards down. Some people go with the intention that nothing can happen to them. They're having fun. And when you're younger, you don't really have the fear that experience brings on as an older person. And sometimes there are older people that maybe they've had experiences, they've been married, but they want a new experience, and then they put themselves at risk. So there's lots of different scenarios for this right here, but these people exist. So I thought this was interesting to bring this out. Also, to add on to this is that a lot of people, I believe, have lost trust in individuals because of the infidelity factor in it. And I believe that's the big one of the big contributors as to why you see a lot of divorce. And there's not a lot of honesty, consistency, openness. There's not a lot of sensitiveness, fairness. There's not a lot of sincerity in these relationships, and some of these relationships are based on, not always based on love as people would think. A lot of times, I've heard from couples, you never know what goes on behind closed doors. Just because you see people as a couple in public, and if they're married or if they're boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever, that doesn't mean that their relationships are perfect. So there's a lot going on behind closed doors that a lot of people are unaware of, and they assume that people's relationships are perfect. Some people do have good relationships. Maybe it starts off like this, but later it could change. So I noticed that what I thought was really a telltale story here is in Pew Research Center. I thought this was interesting. The headline is reading, "Led by Baby Boomers, Divorce Rates Climb for America's 50-plus Population." And this is by a Renee Stepler. So it says, at a time when divorce is becoming less common for younger adults, the so-called gray divorce is on the rise. Among U.S. adults ages 50 and older, the divorce rate is roughly doubled since the 1990s. In 2015, every 1,000 married persons ages 50 and older, 10 divorced, up from 5 in 1990, according to data from the National Center of Health Statistics and U.S. Census Bureau. Among those ages 65 and older, the divorce rate has roughly tripled since 1990, reaching 6 people per 1,000 married persons in 2015. So in other words, there's like statistics. So it says while the divorce rate for adults 50 and older has risen sharply the past 25 years, it has remained relatively steady for this age group since 2008, when the Census Bureau began collecting divorce data yearly as part of an American Community Survey. Still, the divorce rate for those younger than 50 is about twice as high as it is for adults 50 and older. And since 1990, the divorce rate has also climbed slightly for adults ages 40 to 49, though not to extent of those 50 and older. So the baby boomers are your most vulnerable for divorce, and a lot has changed, as I said in earlier videos in the past. I said that I feel like the whole system of marriage is going to change over several years. We're going to see a lot of changes in people and whom they choose to be involved with in relationships and what they do and their reason for being single. There might be more older single people who choose to date, and this is for a lot of the reasons that I just spelled out here are just basically talked about, like swingers and people who are unsafe, infidelity, no honesty, no trust, the lack of trust. It's not like how it used to be where people would anticipate, that knight in shining armor, he's going to come get you, you're going to get married, and well, yada, yada, yada. And then you have these people who anticipate having a family and the typical American family, and that just is not happening anymore like it used to. So times have changed along with some of the issues that we're seeing, with the opioid crisis, with some of the other issues that have come up, all the protests, the brutality, the violence. So it also changes the whole thing with coupling, the trust factor in it. So I just thought this was interesting. Leave your comments. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.